The rain came down in silver needles, hammering the glass walls of the skyscraper like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Inside the penthouse boardroom on the 52nd floor, Victoria Lang stood alone, her reflection fractured across the polished conference table. The city below was a smear of headlights and neon, but up here the only light came from the glow of her laptop screen. The quarterly report was due at dawn, and the numbers weren't lying, the company was bleeding. She rubbed the bridge of her nose, feeling the familiar ache behind her eyes. At 42, she had built an empire on steel and silence, but tonight the empire felt hollow. A soft knock, 3 tentative taps, broke the hush. Victoria frowned. Security knew better than to disturb her after hours. She crossed the room in 4 strides and yanked the door open. A child stood in the threshold, soaked to the bone. Her yellow raincoat hung like a deflated balloon, water pooling at her feet. Dark curls plastered her forehead, her lower lip trembled. She couldn't have been more than 7. Behind her, the hallway stretched empty, no parent, no guardian, only the echo of distant thunder. "Ma'am," the girl whispered, voice cracking like thin ice, "I don't have mama. Can I spend a day with you?" Victoria's hand tightened on the doorframe. The child's eyes were the color of storm clouds, white and ancient with something Victoria recognized but couldn't name. For a moment, the CEO forgot she was wearing a $5,000 suit. She forgot the report, the board, the empire. All she saw was a small, shivering figure clutching a soggy teddy bear missing one eye. Victoria started, then stopped. Protocol demanded she call security. Logic demanded she close the door. But the girl's plea hung in the air like a fragile thread, tugging at something buried deep beneath layers of ambition and armor. The child took a single step forward, leaving wet footprints on the marble. "Just one day," she repeated, softer now, as if the words themselves might break. "Please." Victoria exhaled, a sound that felt like surrender. "Come in," she said. "Before you catch your death." The girl's name was Lila. She said it once, then clung to the teddy bear as Victoria draped her own cashmere coat over the child's shoulders. The coat swallowed Lila whole, sleeves dangling past her fingertips. Victoria led her to the executive lounge, flicked on the gas fireplace, and watched the flames paint gold across the girl's cheeks. "How did you get up here?" Victoria asked, kneeling to peel off the sodden raincoat. "Elevator," Lila answered, matter of fact. "I pressed the shiny button with the star." The man in the uniform smiled and said, "Top floor, kiddo." Victoria's pulse spiked. Security would have a field day. But the warmth creeping into Lila's fingers distracted her. She fetched a towel from the private bath, wrapped it around the child like a cocoon. "Are you hungry?" she asked. Lila nodded, eyes round. "Mama used to make grilled cheese with the crusts cut off." The mention of Mama sliced the air. Victoria straightened, suddenly aware of the cavernous lounge, the leather sofas that had never known a child's sticky fingers. She hadn't cooked in years. Her kitchen was a showroom of stainless steel and sub-zero appliances. But the pantry held basics. She found sourdough, cheddar, butter. The simple act of melting butter in a pan felt foreign, almost sacred. Lila perched on a barstool, swinging her legs. "You're tall," she observed. "Like a giraffe in heels." Victoria laughed, actually laughed, the sound startling them both. She slid the sandwich onto a plate, cut the crusts with surgical precision. Lila took a bite and closed her eyes in bliss. They ate in companionable silence, flames crackling. Outside, the storm softened to a murmur. Victoria studied the child. The faint bruise on her wrist shaped like fingerprints, the way she held the bear as if it might vanish. Questions burned, but she swallowed them. "Not yet." After dinner, Lila yawned. "Mama said big buildings have secret rooms." Victoria hesitated, then led her to the rooftop garden, an oasis of fairy lights and potted lemons no one but the maintenance crew ever saw. The rain had stopped, the city sparkled below like scattered diamonds. Lila gasped, spinning in circles until she was dizzy. "Look," she cried, pointing. "The moon followed us." Victoria's throat tightened. She hadn't noticed the moon in years. They sat on a teak bench. Lila leaned against her, small head heavy on Victoria's arm. "Mama's in heaven," the girl said suddenly, voice small but steady. The car went boom. "I waited at the hospital, but the nice lady said Mama was sleeping forever." The words landed like stones in still water. Victoria's arm instinctively curled around the child. She saw it then, the accident on the news last week, the overturned sedan on the bridge, the single mother pronounced dead at the scene. She had scrolled past the headline without a second thought. I don't have anywhere, Lila continued. The nice lady said foster tomorrow. But today, she looked up, eyes luminous. Today can be ours. Victoria's heart cracked open, a fault line years in the making. She thought of her own childhood. The empty mansion, the nanny who smelled of starch, the mother who died when she was 9, the father who buried grief in boardrooms. She had built walls of glass and steel to keep the loneliness out. And here was a child offering to share hers. Yes, Victoria heard herself say. Today is ours. Dawn painted the sky rose and gold. Victoria called her assistant, cancelled the morning meetings, ignored the frantic texts from the board. She took Lila to the company cafeteria, usually a sea of suits and laptops, and watched heads turn as the child marched in wearing Victoria's oversized blazer like a cape. The barista, a college kid named Marco, made a chocolate chip pancake shaped like a heart. Lila ate 3. In the design lab, engineers let her help prototype a toy robot. She named it Sparkles. In the marketing suite, she drew crayons across a whiteboard, turning revenue graphs into rainbows. Employees whispered, then smiled, then joined in. By noon, the 50 Speaks floor buzzed with something it had never known, joy. But the outside world intruded. A social worker named Ms. Alvarez arrived, clipboard in hand. Lila's placement is urgent, she said gently. Paperwork's ready. Victoria felt the ground tilt. She looked at Lila, who was building a cardboard castle with the intern. The child's laughter rang like bells. One day, she had promised. One day, give me 24 hours, Victoria said, voice steel. I'll cover whatever red tape. Ms. Alvarez hesitated, then nodded. Miracles do happen. That afternoon, they escaped the tower. Victoria's driver took them to Central Park. Lila ran through piles of autumn leaves, arms wide like wings. They fed ducks, bought hot chocolate from a vendor who called Lila, Princess. At the carousel, Victoria lifted her onto a painted horse. As the music played, she saw her own reflection in the mirrored pole, smiling, unguarded, alive. Evening found them in Victoria's penthouse, a sprawling space of minimalist whites now littered with crayons and teddy bear. They built a blanket fort in the living room. Lila fell asleep mid-story, thumb in mouth, bear tucked under chin. Victoria sat on the floor, back against the sofa, watching the rise and fall of the child's chest. The quarterly report sat forgotten on the counter. Numbers suddenly seemed small. Her phone buzzed, her CFO, frantic. The board had called an emergency vote. If she didn't present the turnaround plan by morning, they'd oust her. She stared at the screen, then at Lila. The choice was excruciatingly clear. She made calls, pulled strings. By midnight, she had a plan, not for the company, but for a little girl. Morning light filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows. Lila woke to the smell of pancakes. Victoria had practiced all night. They ate on the terrace, city waking below. Ms. Alvarez arrived with paperwork. Victoria signed without hesitation. Emergency foster custody, effective immediately. She had lawyered up, leveraged every contact, promised the moon. The board could wait. Lila looked from adult to adult, confused. Does this mean? It means, Victoria said, kneeling, you have a home. With me, for as long as you want. The child's face crumpled, then lit like sunrise. She launched herself into Victoria's arms, small body shaking with sobs that were half grief, half gratitude. Victoria held her tight, feeling the last of her walls dissolve. Weeks turned to months. The company survived, barely. Under new leadership, Victoria mentored remotely. She sold the penthouse, bought a brownstone with a garden. Lila started school, made friends, learned to ride a bike. Nightmares came, but Victoria was there with warm milk and stories of brave girls who built empires from kindness. One spring afternoon, they planted tulips in the backyard. Lila, now 8, wore overalls streaked with dirt. Mama, she said, testing the word, claiming it, do you think heaven can see us? Victoria brushed soil from the child's cheek. I know it can, and she's proud. Lila grinned, gap-toothed and fearless. Race you to the swing. Victoria let her win. Years later, at Lila's college graduation, the former CEO, now simply, Mom, stood in the audience, eyes shining. The girl who once begged for a single day had grown into a woman who built playgrounds in underserved neighborhoods, her nonprofit funded by a trust Victoria established the day she chose love over ledgers. On the podium, Lila adjusted her cap. This degree, she said, voice steady, is for the woman who taught me that success isn't measured in skyscrapers, but in the height of the walls we tear down for others. To my mom, who gave me not just a day, but a lifetime." The crowd roared. Victoria wept unashamedly. In the end, the empire wasn't the one with her name on the building. It was the one built on a rainy night, when a powerful woman opened a door and let a little girl rewrite both their stories. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, a mother in heaven smiled.